got cool. But you'll be here in a minute. Yeah.
All right, I'd like to call the Tree Protection Board to order September 7th, 2021. Before we get started, I just want to mention that we had a profound loss to the board, to the town, to the community. Ginger Riley, who usually sits the far left, passed away suddenly last week while on a trip with her family. She was an advocate for tree protection. She definitely was an advocate for elderly people, and I know her love for animals. So if we can, just a quick moment of silence for Ginger. All right, moving into business. Minutes from August 9th. Any corrections, additions to those minutes anybody needs to make on the board?
I move we approve.
Do I have a second? I have a second.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. No old business, so we'll move to new business. 100 Amen Corner, removal of 3 pine trees, 1 willow oak tree. Is there a property owner here? Welcome to come up. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm Rich Miller. This is an illustration of our backyard when it's finished and pool. Some kind of illustration. Why we need circumference of those trees.
So the main reason for the removal is for the pool itself, and the permit for the pool has already gone
Yes,
through town.
we, it's a rather small yard, so it doesn't give us a lot of leeway with respect to installation.
Yes, sir. The board had a chance to review that on site. The willow oak obviously is definitely in the footprint of the pool. I think the question we had was for the pine trees that you're asking for. What are the reasons for that? It looks like there's a good distance away from those trees, at least the majority of them.
The pine trees themselves pitch towards the yard. Got some other trees there, and so the majority of the branches hang into the yard. And even in the middle of summer, when you don't normally get large amount falling of pine needles, it's a long pine tree as well. Even then, you get a large amount. You can see the branches hanging out in the front. You're on the side, you can see how far out they hang. So there's a constant falling of pine needles. It's going to plug up the pool and cause a lot of damage to the pool if we don't constantly clean the pool. They make the pool not usable for us. You can see all the branches sticking out in the direction of the yard. And overhanging there.
Are there any comments by any of the board members?
We actually love trees, and if there was any way we could keep them with the pool, and we would, but we really can't build the pool with those trees.
I think we all agree that tree number 3 could certainly go, if only as an assistance to tree number 4 in close proximity. As far as the pine needles, there are some lower branches that would reduce some needles, some lower branches that could be pruned to reduce the level of load. Other than that, I personally didn't see a threat from those pine trees. Not having the pool pinned and flagged doesn't help us making a decision on that later.
I'm sorry, I understand.
Mark the corners.
Of the pool?
Yeah. So that would help but
That
it's,
illustration is exactly where the pool's going to go.
I know, but we didn't see that when we visited, is what I'm saying.
You're not in a place where you can do anything in the yard at all until we have approval for the tree removal and a permit
Do you have a permit for the pool?
It's been paid for. As soon as this is approved.
Okay.
I'll issue the permit.
We plan on putting palm trees.
Yeah, we're
We're
gonna,
gonna put palm trees in the back. We plan on a palm tree in that corner and then in the other corner. and then Various different palms.
we added 3 apple trees on the other side of the fence. It's on. Got permission for those trees, and so we're gonna do 3 large apple trees out there as well. Like I said, we do love trees. We don't want to take them down if we don't like them. It's strictly the problem. And I know that the pine trees are going to be an issue, and I don't want to kill the trees, taking down the branches. That are gonna be-
There's a limit to, of course, how many branches you can take off. Up to 20%. Those are pretty healthy pine trees. Up to 20% of the foliage could be removed and not threaten those trees. Again, they're in a healthy place and they're doing well. So, and there are canopy trees, and we concentrate on preserving the canopy tree existence in the town, not so much smaller ornamentals, because they're the ones that functionally provide what we see as the greatest need for the trees, not just shade, cooling, erosion control, et cetera. So those are my thoughts, Mr. Chair.
I think based on the drawing where we thought the pool was going to be to that direction, it didn't appear that it was going to affect the health of the pine trees as far as the excavation part of it. Your concern is more about the pine needles, which obviously with the pool, if anybody's ever had a pool and with trees around, you're going to have maintenance. You're going to have to scoop it and you got to clean it, I mean, consistently. So, and there is opportunity to definitely prune limbs and remove some of that load as far as pine needles go.
I don't believe the 20% would do enough to help us with that pool. It's $100,000 pool.
Mhm.
It's a big investment. They have continual maintenance problems.
Well, I think you're going to have maintenance problems no matter what. I mean, without stuff blowing it in, but that's just my observation too.
Palmetto trees are not canopy trees.
Palm trees are not canopy trees.
They typically go with pools. Everybody wants to put one next to a pool, but they definitely are canopy.
That fence, is your property beyond that fence?
No, ma'am, it's not.
The trees, that apple trees that'll be planted over there?
Yeah, they are planted.
Yeah, they're brand new.
I just wondered where your property line was.
It's
Is
a-
that the fence?
You just said you had permission to put
Yes.
the trees over there.
Yes.
Bill, is there pictures of the canopy of those 3 pines available or?
Right on the right side, that's outside the fence.
Yeah, no,
So-
yeah, no, no,
Is
it's
that
the
fine
one.
inside?
Yeah.
Yeah, those are the trees.
Which one of the trees was for the board? I mean, that would help the other 2. 3. That's what I remember.
What did you say?
Removal of at least 1 tree was to help the other 2. I just remember which one it was. So it's 3. Is there any more comments or anybody want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we allow removal of the willow oak, of course. Nicest tree in your yard, unfortunately. And tree number 3. And recommend pruning on 2 and 4. 20% to allow for a reduction in pine needle accumulation in and around the pool.
Do I have a second? Have a second. Any more discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. The only thing I would suggest is when you have the trees, number 3 taken down, the willow, if an arborist or the tree companies out there looking at the other two and they find something we didn't see that's unhealthy, then certainly you can get back with Mr. Salisbury and he can forward it to us and we can take action on it at that time.
To limit to what we can see from the ground.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
They can take some pictures if they're there, they see anything, take some pictures, and y'all can call me. You know, I'm afraid I'll have.
All right.
Okay.
Great,
All
thank
right,
you.
thank you. Next new business is 198 Bamert Street, removal of 3 pine trees. Is there a property owner here? You want to move that one, Bill?
Going to remove the pine trees where the shed goes there, in order to put a shed there. One of those pine trees we've already approved in or another time when he requested. that problem. Look very healthy. Tell you where the electrical line, remember we saw the electrical line, kind of like right in there where I got the X. Came back down over here. Right in there. Power line. So if we were trying to put the building in the corner of his yard, it would, you'd have to remove those trees.
That one is incorrect, I think. Go back down and Bill. That's not the previous. The arrow is not on the correct tree to be removed. That was previously approved. It's the middle one. Yes.
Came from the property owner here.
Okay.
I believe our observations out there the other day was that there's plenty of room on the back property line away from those trees to put a shed.
This picture here didn't have the red line in it one where they had located the power line.
Well, we saw it and it
Yeah, I
goes
saw it
behind
out
it
there.
and it makes a right and goes back to the street this way. And so that those trees are basically in the corner, offset a little bit from the power line corner where it'd be convenient to put a shed out of the way. I think the shed could be moved to the left as you face the trees. And go ahead and remove the middle tree that we already approved for removal. And do that.
Bill, do we know what type of shed? Are they just bring a shed in or they building something with a foundation?
I did not look at the permit, shed permit. I just looked at the tree permit.
Is there a permit for the shed?
Yes, he got a permit in for the shed. And it would show in that permit all the different, design and stuff like that.
It seems like he could make some adjustments or shift that shed as much space as there is in that backyard. To put the shed in and leave the trees.
plenty of room in the backyard. He just didn't want it in the middle of his backyard. Comment, but
Any more comments from the board? Do we have a motion?
I move that we allow removal of the tree that's already been approved to be removed, the one in the middle of the cluster of three, and deny removal of the other two.
Do I have a second?
Second that.
Have a second. Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Could you shoot up all the way to show the canopy of those trees, Bill? The size of those trees? Just so that everyone can sort of see what we're talking about. They're significant trees. Significant canopy trees in a neighborhood that's endowed with lots of them. And it certainly enhances its appearance.
aging, canopy trees in that South Point, and the trees are getting older, and we have a lot more of them coming out, so we do need that what we can
Right.
in there.
And plan ahead and start planting new ones.
All right, next order of business, 103 Limerick Circle, removal of 6 pine trees. Do we have a property owner for that? All right, Bill. I'll give your evaluation on this, Bill.
Okay, tree number 5 was the only tree that had any problems at all. The, was very concerned about tree number 1 being in the way of getting anything in and out of the backyard. It was the street on the back side of his yard that he had access or could make access to get in the yard. He was mainly talking about trying to get a 10 by 20 building, was it, that he was trying to get in his would like to get in his backyard, and maybe possibly a pool in the future. He didn't let us know any of that when he first applied. That's what he talked about the day we went out there. This tree number 5 right there, it had a scar on the back of it. It had healed up pretty good, but it was, pretty good. A little bit of decaying and all in that scar. The other trees were very healthy.
The green trees.
Yeah, they're all 30-inch.
Which one was the one that we thought might have been a lightning strike?
Uh,
What number?
I don't think we've seen it yet.
Number 6?
Yeah,
It's number 6 right there.
No, 5. 5's a lightning struck tree.
That's right. So we haven't found it yet.
It's, yeah,
There he is.
Okay.
And it was right back on the fence side of that, so it's not in any of the pictures, I guess, the lightning strike, but something hit it right back there with a kind of a long streak on the back there that didn't damage that tree.
But you did say that he wrote.
It was healing, yes, well, and a big heart pine like that, it's got so much sap in it, it doesn't do a lot of rot. Heart molasses really well.
Depends on how the lightning hits. Some of the trees that hit by lightning, they are dead. And others manage to survive this, and this is one of them. And we have seen a number of trees in the past that have survived a lightning hit, which is wonderful, but it was not that strong that it hit when it hit. I'd like to,
Yes.
move that we allow him to take tree number 1 down, but at this point deny the rest. He was more concerned about tree number 1 than the rest. Right?
Access to his one.
Get,
I'd like to amend that motion to remove pine tree number 1 from removal. That was about the largest one on the property. Recall that there is no permit for a pool, there is no permit for a building. And until there is,
okay.
we can't really make a judgment on these trees. I don't feel.
A withdrawal.
And we gave him that opportunity when we talked to him to provide just a letter from the folks bringing in the shed. You know, they could say they couldn't get it in there from the back or through the gate, then we'd be looking at the tree differently. So the motion on the floor is to not allow any of the trees at this time to be removed. Is that correct?
Yes.
Do I have a second? I'll second it. Any more discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries. All right, next one is 2029 Shoal Creek Court, removal of 2 pine trees.
Where, okay, he's here, okay, we came by there to look at it and those trees were gone.
There's a reason they're gone. There's gonna be a pool put in there. It's the pool permit. And you had inspected them earlier, and I should have been here at the last board meeting. But I never got the notice to come to the last board meeting. So, there's a pool permit. I'll show you this picture here. This is one of the pine trees. It's diseased.
Disease with what?
What?
Disease with what?
Why did you remove pine trees without a tree permit?
Because I was under the impression that they would be okay to come down anyway because of the swimming pool, location of the swimming pool. The upper tree would have been in the pavers of the tree, of the pool. Right there. Pool permit has been applied for. And the reason it has to be that high is because I have a floodplain in my lower part of my yard, and the pool has to come up that way. Up that high. So both trees would have been interfered with. Well, that one on the upper part would have been, picture of it here, if anybody wants to see it. That pine tree would have been in the pavers. And when they did it, it just needed to come out of there, so. They're gone.
When are they gonna be putting the pool in?
Soon as I get the pool permit's been applied for, they had told me I needed to see y'all about that. So it's down in the pool permit. But I should have been able to see the tree board before those trees were taken down. But it took 2 months to get
We denied
people in
one of
there.
these trees because you didn't mention a pool.
I'm sorry.
One of these trees, the healthy tree, you got denied at. You came to the committee and you got denied.
No, you didn't look at that tree. You wouldn't look at that tree last time because I didn't have a pool permit.
We looked
I
at,
have
it.
a pool permit.
We
now.
looked at all the trees. We looked at all of them.
There was, sir.
I said, we looked at all of them that you'd applied for last time.
So anyway, but anyway, that's where we stand.
You have a permit now?
I do. Oh, it's down in the permit department. Yes.
We had issued a permit. We were waiting on the tree permit before you issued the pool.
Right,
permit.
that's the normal procedure.
Normal procedure.
But it is down in the pool permit department.
he jumped the gun and didn't wait till he got his permit.
I understand,
He still doesn't have it.
He still doesn't have a tree permit. Right now, he's,
or a pool permit.
our food permit.
Did your tree company not ask you for a tree permit before they took the trees down?
I had a tree permit from last time. Cut a couple other trees down while they were in there. Went in and hadn't cut those down because I assumed, I guess I made a mistake. but I
You
assumed
did?
These would be okay to get cut down because they would be, one was bad damage. None was in the way of the pool.
I mean, that may be true, but obviously we didn't have an opportunity to vote on those trees. So, I mean, there was no tree permit for those trees. So, I mean, that's an issue for the town and you, not the board. I believe I'm correct in saying that, Bill.
But on the other hand, if they do that, you should still recognize the fact that one was damaged, another one been in the pool. And then would have been, a permit would have been issued for those trees.
And that'd be very true. I'm just saying there was no opportunity for us to vote on that I'm aware of. So there was no permit for them. So, I mean, we may have done exactly what you're saying, but that's not the case.
I'll show you the picture.
No, I don't discount your evidence at all.
The order that you did this thing was wrong.
Okay,
Too long. Code enforcement, if they're gonna fine you for removing the tree without a permit, and how much mitigation they're gonna do on the, healthy tree.
Let's move back out the treatment.
So there's no real action for the board on this particular.
No, I moved it, move on because there are no trees to discuss. They're all cut down.
I second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, thank you.
Y'all notify the. We're not gonna pull permit later now.
No worries, till we make a decision on your trees, and I will have to get with code enforcement on that.
Okay. So,
We'd like, you know,
It's out of our hands. Yeah, as a tree.
this week,
possibly.
let me know. Thank you.
Thank you. "109 President Circle, removal of 3 pines, 3 oaks, 1 magnolia, tallow oak gum, and a Bradford pear tree. Property owner or someone representing them? Okay,
Act like he was gonna be here, didn't he? The arborist did.
yeah, at 9:30, he said he'd be here by then.
It's just about 30.
Well, I think we can discuss it, obviously. We were able to see it and they presented information while we're out there. They're doing a circular driveway and repairing another driveway and doing construction for sort of some type of overhang on the back, a gazebo or some sort.
Yeah, with the
Back.
indoor kitchen, I think, and a
Indoor
patio.
kitchen.
Or not an outdoor kitchen with a shed over the top of it, no.
So Bill, we're going by your numbers, correct?
That's right.
Okay.
I didn't change my numbers on here. Wait a minute, that's in the backyard. Don't have my pictures in the order of how we went through the yard. There.
Hmm.
There's tree number 1.
All right, so tree number 1 is they're asking to take that out and protect the other 2 larger pines. That's correct? Yep. All right, any questions on number one?
Had a little damage on it.
Mhm.
It was close to the driveway. He was wanting to take it out because of competition from the other trees too. They are gonna take the driveway out, cement driveway out, and put a fan shell driveway in.
I just want to have one comment. I think we probably all recognize that most of these trees, not all of them, are probably okay for the purpose. But this is going to come up again later today. That these structures, the multitudinous structures here, you've got a driveway, you've got a front porch, you've got a back porch, a gazebo, a patio. It's really hard for us to look at a drawing and conceive, oh yes, okay, that tree's in the footprint. When a lot of expense and effort was gone into this project, they could have at least flagged the corners, flagged the line of the driveway, so we can see what we're talking about. It would make it much easier. There was a lot of discussion that day about, see, where's this, what, move there. And so I don't know whether we can require that, but it sure would be handy.
And we've asked for that in the past where we had a lot of questions and property owners did do that for us.
I know, we did it once and it was a big delay for the property owner, but
Mhm.
maybe it'd be these kind of jobs to have some advance notice that it would be very helpful, or maybe even required. Anyhow, that's all.
I can start requesting that, Peter. That'll
Good.
help a lot.
Yeah,
That would help.
some things are obvious, a tree is 4 feet from the house. We don't need to see the foundations. We know, but this is all new. That'd be good.
Yeah, I think to the arborist's credit, I mean, it appears that he has talked landowners into protecting some trees I
Yeah.
thought probably they would have asked for and they didn't.
Yep, I wish
which-
you were here. We told them.
All right, so we know number one, they want to take out. And I believe number three,
Number 3 was a pine tree there that, was right where the driveway's going. And, number 2, before you get to that, the oak right behind that other pine tree. Yeah, that was in the way of the driveway. And number 4, there was a, holly tree that was, over there close to the house.
Magnolia. Magnolia.
That's, okay, that's right, it wasn't like that. And, this picture, we can see number 6 was an oak tree that was leaning over towards the house. Number 5 was another oak tree, I think.
That's number 5, supposed to be a sweet gum, I think.
yeah, I think one was labeled wrong, wasn't it?
But might have been.
Yeah, there was a sweet gum in there that was small, that it was being asked to be removed for spacing out the crowdedness in that little pocket there, right?
Inside the deck area.
Oh, that's in the bag.
No, in the front, what we're looking at right now. There was a gum in there,
Number 5, yeah, he was just wanting to get it out. of
right, for
before it
crowding.
crowd some of the other trees so they can do better. And I'm here, by the way.
Well, please come up.
Oh, there you are. This guy here.
You were right on that 9:30 call. You're here at 9:30. Am I good quick? Good morning, y'all.
Morning.
I don't know if I've already missed some questions.
Well, we talked about the pine tree out by the driveway already, and I think we passed that.
Okay.
And, now we're just looking at this group of trees in the front yard. And,
Right, so, considering the driveway location, a couple preserve, help it remove. I know for Miss Neeson, the big issue for her was the leaning laurel oak when it leans out over the bedroom.
Right.
She
That was tree number 6 back there.
six, yeah, she was worried about that one. Four was the magnolias. We were looking at root issues with that crawl space foundation. We're worried about some future root issues there, but also a little driveway proximity issue. And the construction of the front porch was within 10 feet of the magnolia.
Tree number 3, pine tree, was in the way of the driveway.
Way of the driveway and the front porch.
And 2 was a
Oak tree.
water rope, correct?
Water road, yeah, driveway construction, yeah, it's coming right across almost right across the basal flare of that one.
And there's
And
a,
number 5 in there was a gum tree. Was that what it?
Little small gum tree, right, it's standing right next to another small gum tree. So I was just trying to get a little more spacing in there, and it was gonna, taking the one small sweet gum was gonna add a little more space for a oak that we were protecting right behind it and
Right.
preserving.
do we have a picture of that?
I don't think so. I didn't see one.
It's actually the tree that's right under the number 2. I think that is the sweet gum that I'm talking about, is the one directly right there, just
Right there.
past it. The next one to the right.
Oh, that one right there.
I think it's that guy, yeah.
Okay.
And to its left is the larger sweet gum that
Right.
you're wishing to lighten the load on.
Exactly. We were taking the small one out and keeping the larger specimen.
Just quickly go back to number 1. You don't even have to show the picture, but by the one, number 1, first tree on the left by the driveway. What was your reason for that one again?
Again, just looking at those 2 pine trees right on top of each other, and that one was leaning, the top of it was starting to list out away from the group. Right, and it's got that little canker on the base of it there. So just looking at those 2, I thought if I was going to create some space in there, which tree would I take?
That one's kind of crowded in that oak tree too.
Right, surrounding the oak tree, there's a group of 4 standing in there, and I think that when you look at that group, which one would you take out to make a little room? That was the obvious choice.
And us too.
We're ready to move to the back.
I made a remark in the beginning before you got here that the only trouble I had in the back was not being able to see the corners of the structure. Because I had trouble taking that big sweet gum down, or I still do, but if it's in a footprint, but it's so helpful if there was, an accurate corners put on some of these things, the driveway, the front porch and the back. And that's not your job, I know that.
Right.
But that sure would have helped. We spent a lot of time looking and asking questions about that one. That's it right there.
Yeah, right, and that is kind of right on the edge of where what they're calling the gazebo. It's going to be a pole, some slab floor, pole sides with a substantial roof. Basically almost like a pole shed. They're calling it the gazebo. That is right on the edge of that construction. Should be in your plans. Not sure what the page I'm looking at A2. Doesn't have trees on it. I think there is one that shows footprint of all construction.
Right here.
Does it have the tree? I can't see it. Does
Yeah,
that
the
have
tree
the
is
trees
in there.
inside? Yeah, so you can see in that hatched square, that half hatched square is the gazebo. The southern half of the hatched square is just open patio. Those trees kind of stand right there where
the gum tree would be in the center of the patio area.
Right.
And very close to the edge of the roof of the thing, and the pine tree you want to remove is in the center of the shed.
And the town's already approved all these. The town's already approved the construction, design and stuff. Do
I
we
have
know?
no understanding of that.
I know it's all been up there, but I'm not sure if it's signed off, everybody's got approval on it yet or not.
Yeah, I can't speak to that. I apologize.
I know Becca's been looking at it, 'cause she's, got the, pervious surface. You're removing the driveway and all for the pervious surface, so it's getting close.
And I'm working with the landscaper to tweaking some of their ideas to make sure there's actually some concrete curbing going in. And one of the things I'm working with the landscaper on is like, let's be sure that the landscape plan doesn't keep the arboricultural plan, but any irrigation lines, this concrete curbing that they came up with, I was like, we really gotta talk about that. We talked about going through and cut some kind of little footer for that thing. We're shooting the arboricultural
Mhm.
ideas at foot, so.
So when you say landscape plan, you're talking about hardscape mostly?
Right, yeah. So it was, we tweaked the ideas to make sure that the black walnut and beautiful dogwood all stay and are healthy. No one's doing anything outside in the landscaping or, once the removals and pruning and all that stuff, the landscape crew comes in, they're not doing something that wasn't intended. End up chopping up some trees.
Right. And that's all in the backyard. Hardscape
Right.
plan. And is
I've been working diligently with landscape.
that natural direction? Or,
It is not natural
Okay.
directions. Natural directions will just be doing the pruning, the removals, and the post-construction care.
okay,
All of the keeper trees will be fertilized. Big live oaks in the back are going to be pruned for deadwood and raise them up out of the yard just a little bit.
Mhm.
Then fertilization and mycorrhizing on all the trees.
If you put something around the drip line on that dogwood to protect it.
Yes.
So that even some of the equipment would not want it to be stacked under that tree
Right,
and damage those roots.
yeah.
Because it is a gorgeous dogwood.
Yes, I'd like to do that for the Japanese maple as well. Those are trees that, their whole existence depends on that root system being healthy and productive, but they go down really fast. So the Japanese maple and dogwood, I'll be glad to.
And I'm guessing that's gonna be part of the permit process anyway, Bill. I don't know if we can speak to that or not, but typically any construction requires the protection of the trees.
Yes. Trees that small, typically gets squeezed in really, really tight.
That's right.
But no, I'll make sure that those two trees are well protected.
right.
The drip line. would
Right.
be-
All right, so just gonna go through this real quickly. We're looking at number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8. Is that correct?
6, 7.
7, 2.
Tallow tree.
Seventh is
Tallow tree. Yeah.
And you said 8 was in the path of the deck. Is that right? So it's 9. Okay.
Tim's little press there.
So any more discussion, questions? Do I have a motion?
Move that we accept those trees numbered 1 through 9.
Then,
Excuse me, how could I forget number 10, 1 through 10?
Gonna save that Bradford.
No, we do. 1 through 10, approve for removal.
Do I have a
I'll s-
second?
I'll second.
All right, we have 2 seconds. Any more discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you. Somerville Commons, removal of trees for apartment development. Morning.
Fine, yes, sir.
My name's Erica Chase, civil engineer for the project, and it is a 266 apartment complex. And the site's pretty unique for the low country especially. There's about a 15-foot elevation change across the property, falling from Berlin G. Myers to Farm Springs. There were a number of items that drove the site plan, that obviously being one of them. And then obviously ADA accessibility drove a lot of the site plan the way it was designed. The driveway location as well, we'd initially had a different driveway location in our first set of plans, and then learned that the adjacent development Sawmill Center was a little bit farther along in the development process than we were, and that we had to align with their driveway. We have been to CDRB and we have received final CDRB approval for the site and landscape plan. We are meeting the 10% open space that the UDO requires. One of those items is along Berlin G. Myers. We're showing a 10-foot mixed use path along Berlin G. Myers, which I believe also will connect to Sawmill Center once that development is done. Along the kind of bottom left page corner, we are showing kind of a pocket park that'll have a pollinator and habitat garden to try and, give back to what's being removed.
Is that part of the 10%?
Yes, sir. The other item is, we understand the town wanted to see CDRB and its good planning practices, having the buildings anchored along the road frontage. So that's really what drove us to the site plan that we have. Any questions?
You got more? You got more?
I think this has two.
Okay, then, it's probably not relevant.
So
Yeah, right.
What trees get removed and
So I'm looking at the driveway right now to my left as I envision this diagram. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
right in here, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. This is your pocket park right here.
Yes.
What is the narrow slice of vacancy of land to the left of your arrow there, right there? What does that boundary represent? Right, that one,
That line, a new right-of-way line. So the Sawmill Center development and then Childers Klein, our client, are working on a agreement for the extension of 9th Street to then connect to Farm Springs.
So there's multiple development occurring here. We don't know much about this and don't get into this, but there's more than just the apartments going, right? Is that right?
Yes, sir.
got
We're
mixed-
only working on the apartment site. There's another engineer, another development team, another property owner for Sawmill Center.
Again, so can I assume the questions we had were to address
Sure.
were a line of trees that currently exist, well, all the trees still exist.
It's over here in the red.
And I had a question about the front, if that bounds Berlin Myers Parkway. And is that to be totally barren? Because there's a few trees along the edge there. Is that totally out of the, in the way of all development efforts? Do you know?
We're going to try, we'd like to get permission, but we're going to try and save what we can, especially along the mixed use path. Obviously, you know, some shade, we'll be putting some benches along the path, would be an enhancement. Tree number 6 that's shown on the PDF is a 21-inch oak. We think we may be able to work around it, but we would obviously have construction in the root zone. So that is concerning to me, you know, to fit the path in. It's a 10-foot path and a 20-foot easement. So we do have the ability to move around the tree, but I worry that it's still going to be in the root zone.
I understand. It's always the problem. So the trees that we looked at are the red, not counting the one in the street. I'm glad that one in the street was, because that's right on the street, just about, right?
I think one of our big concerns is why did you, these trees here did not have any grade change on them, and you didn't make any effort at all to try to save these trees in your plan?
Sure. The site
And
plan,
you come to us after you got the whole plan all already approved, and, you know, we're looking at it.
sure. And my apologies for, you know, maybe not knowing the process right. I thought we were to go to CDRB first.
They should be asking as well if the process is going right.
Sure. The buildings on the 3 larger buildings along the road frontages were really to anchor the road frontages. You know, to have the buildings on the road was what drove the site plan,
Okay.
along with the driveway, the grade change. Because if we were to rotate the buildings 90 degrees on that top right building, it wouldn't be along Berlin G. Meyer, so you'd kind of lose that street presence. And then also the grade change wouldn't allow for us to rotate that building 90 degrees and still maintain ADA accessibility.
Okay, well, what was brought to our attention was mainly the trees in red.
Sure.
And there are, to my count, 6 live oaks and 1 large spruce pine that we really would like to see saved. There's a lot of trees in between, which will be good for the remaining trees once they're removed in one respect, and another, maybe not, depending on how they're removed. That is with a D8 or with a Traco or a chainsaw or whatever the plans are immediately adjacent to those trees. But I would certainly like to see all those trees saved. It's either 5 or 6 live oaks and 1 spruce pine. And that was what was directed to us to really discuss. And that's in my opinion.
Yeah, that,
Trees
and
are you
they're-
referring to on the plan?
Well, they're boxed in red. I don't know whether you-
yeah, I think they're the ones that's in the red that kind of
Oh, in the
runs
building footprint?
northeast.
Thing is, they were more in a line than that.
Yeah, it was an old hedgerow.
They're obvious if you're out there standing there and looking at them, for sure.
Of course, it didn't have to be perpendicular to the street. It could be a little like that, you know, and they are sort of in a line, but those are the 6 trees that we would like to see saved. And also, in the process of saving them, do the best possible job in not disturbing their existing root systems to remove that which is around it. And it's a lot of small stuff. There's a couple of big trees that are having trouble and need to go. But the oaks will last, you know, they last forever or almost.
Sorry, I just want to make sure I'm along the Berlin G. Myers frontage, or the ones shown in red that are in the building footprint.
The ones shown in red. There's,
Can you blow it up some, Bill? Are you able to blow this up a little
I don't know that I can.
bit? Okay, fine.
If
Good.
I had the plan, I could, it would have been a little thing up here on the top, but I
Yeah.
don't
That's fine.
think, but I don't see any way I can crease this.
And there's a lot of hackberries and water oaks that are not very healthy in that row that I really wasn't concerned with, basically the live oaks and the spruce pine.
If you got those out, then you could allow the live oaks and pine to be presented better.
So we're
would-
talking about even the ones in the building footprint, the ones in the sidewalk, mixed use path.
well, if it was in the footprint, it wouldn't have been mentioned, would it, have us to look at? Or would it?
That's what we're trying to say is, well, why didn't you try to save these trees to start with? You know,
Yeah.
You had a big grade change on the whole site that you had to take out the rest of the trees.
Right.
But this one little area up here where it had some pretty trees, y'all didn't make any effort at all to try to save.
I guess it's, we maintain the building frontage along Berlin G. Meyer. It's I don't want to say a lose-lose situation, but it's a tough situation from a planning standpoint of what option to choose, with maintaining that frontage, getting the mixed use path in. I agree that, I mean, the trees are beautiful, but I don't, it's one or the other. We can't do both.
There's not room for any flexibility whatsoever.
The 21-inch oak, we could try to save,
No, I meant.
bending the
in
mixed
terms
use
of
path around
The
it.
footprint,
Tree
buildings can't be moved.
3, if we were to lose some parking, which is already tight, maybe we could bend the sidewalk around it, but I don't see, while again, maintaining what CDRB wants to see with buildings along the road. And how we would be able to,
Well, right here, this is a building right here, right?
right,
If you would have continued smaller buildings on down the road, you could continue that same look and saved a bunch of these in here.
those are garages with a unit above on those two.
This is a garage.
Yes, sir, with a second apartment, 2 apartments on top of the garage.
A garage, what kind of garage?
Drive-in garage.
You had
For
a-
cars.
and
For
right
parking?
here where I
Yes,
got
sir.
the arrow now, you left the open spot right there. If that open spot was here where these trees were, that would have been able to save those trees right in there. And have an island or something in a parking lot down here behind it.
That, if we were to mirror the plan, it would say the hackberry and the water oak.
Oh, you've got a good diagram. We will have that. I'd like to have that.
And then you'd have the larger buildings kind of in a L shape, and then smaller buildings on the corner, just not anchoring the site.
But if this building was turned anchoring a site like that building, it would have missed all of those trees right there.
Right, which we did look at, but couldn't make the grades work there.
You say you can't make the grades work there?
Yeah, there's a 15-foot drop along the site.
Not in that area.
No, it was flat as a board when we walked there.
It's pretty high up there.
Even with the building that we have shown currently, we would drop from, there's about a 5-foot drop currently shown in that area. So if we were to rotate it, that building wouldn't be able to have ADA accessibility.
Well, we marked these trees in because there wasn't hardly any grade change in these trees right here and what's out on the street.
So the grade changes,
Very little in that area right there.
if turning a building is a grade change.
5-foot drop in there.
On the, sorry, the, if you were to rotate the building 90 degrees, which
Down
again
here.
wouldn't give you that frontage that we're looking, that CDRB and just planning was looking for. Right where that, if you move your mouse down, that garage building to your right, bottom,
Right.
below the dumpsters right there, there's a 69, it's about a 68.5 elevation right there. And we're at a 73 elevation at, or 74-foot elevation at the mixed use path.
So when you said that this site presented great challenge due to the drop. It's not just there, it's elsewhere. It's where the whole line of trees in the back that's going to disappear is equally severe. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, what are you going to do there? You're going to fill, you're going to step down.
We're stepping down throughout the site. So we're matching existing grade by the time you get down to Farm Springs at a 59 to a 61-foot elevation. There's a lot of grading happening throughout the site.
Well, I don't know where we can stand on this. Sounds like CPRB should have a little side input from other departments.
You can put it on the table and let them come back and, make an effort to try to change things.
If there was more flexibility, could you make some changes?
I think, and we can get Natural Directions input on the 21-inch oak and then possibly on the 35-inch live oak. If we could get some flexibility of construction in the root zone. Those are the two that I thought we had the best chance with.
We want to save the live oaks and that pine at one time. And that, maybe two pretty to lose.
Well, we need to move on, I think. What do you think, Penny?
Well, if there's ability for the town to talk a little bit more about this construction and have some more flexibility, maybe something can be done to save more of these trees that we've been looking at. So do you have an ongoing conversation with them, or are you at a point where you're done in your mind and we're the only thing holding it up right now?
We're happy to, to look at those two trees. I don't know if we would be able to save all of them in red because we are very far down the road on the project. The civil engineering and landscape architecture design's basically done, but again, we do believe in the importance of trying to do what we can to save the trees and can certainly look at a couple of them, but I don't see us being able to really completely reconfigure the plan again with the grades to try and save them all, but we can certainly make an effort.
You saving on the site?
We're going to save some in the pocket park. There's a number of pines in there that we're going to do our best to save. And then wherever the grading allows us, we're going to certainly keep and put tree protection zones up.
Asking you the question, how many trees you saving and how many you taking out? Was my next question.
Sure. I don't have a number on how many we're saving. Once we finish up and go to submit to town engineering, we'll have tree protection zones around wherever the grading allows us to save by all means.
Well, I think the board would appreciate you going back and seeing what you can save.
Okay.
And make our job a little bit easier in trying to protect the trees that are there. Also, there's another segment in the town that's requiring you to do something. So, I mean, if you can make that conversation happen, then I'm assuming we just table this until that information comes
We
back to
table
us.
it for the further discussions with the CDRB and hope for the best.
All right, well, I'll second that. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Much.
No stuff.
Thank you.
610 West Fifth North Street, removal of trees for mixed use development. Do we have a? Morning.
Jimmy. My name is Cameron Baker. I'm a civil engineer on the project. Here representing Mr. David Willis, Willis Holdings. The project, I'll wait till Bill scrolls through the tree list from the previous one. We have one similar too. If you could probably go to the next sheet, we got the trees color coded, or the following one after this one. Sorry. There you go. So the existing site today is approximately 2.3 acres. It's a vacant home. It was previously a single-family residential property. As part of the town's new UDO, it's part of the neighborhood use zoning district, which allows for both residential and commercial uses. As far as the plan and the existing conditions, we had natural directions provide a tree assessment for all the trees on the property. And this color-coded exhibit represents natural directions assessment on the trees, the red being poor, the yellow being fair, and the green being good condition. The site is predominantly pines and gums, and there's a few other, there's some oaks and some magnolias, some additional species, but predominantly it's pines and gums. As far as the proposed site plan, since it's in this mixed-use district, we've got 4 6-unit residential townhome buildings on the page south.
How many?
4 buildings, 4 separate structures, having
Um,
6 units each, so 24 total
Okay.
units. And page north would be 2 5,000 square foot commercial buildings. As far as the site's concerned, some of the additional challenges we had kind of had the opposite issue. We had very little terrain change, very little slope change across this 2 acres. It's predominantly flat, maybe 6 inches of slope differential. Got some really good sandy infiltrated soils. So in order to meet the town stormwater requirements, we did have to introduce a stormwater detention system, which we proposed an underground system in the driveway. But in order to facilitate drainage, positive drainage to that, we did have to bring in fill, and the fill would obviously impact the existing trees on the property. Additionally, we had up front, while not planned or not permitted yet, conceptually, we understand that Highway 78 will be widened. So we did account for that that right of way taken in the future. Regarding coordination with the town, we've done the pre-application meeting with the TRC. Got very little, call it negative feedback as far as our compliance with the UDO. We do have the same challenge that the buildings do need to front the proposed right of ways, be within certain 10 to 15 foot setback from that right of way. We did have a meeting with Mr. Salisbury and Mr. Wallace on site where we walked and looked at all these trees. Again, our takeaway from that meeting was that there's a 21-inch live oak on it's Walnut Street, so a little bit south there. Right there? No, it's the green one just to there, right there. Yep. There's a 21-inch live oak, and that's the tree that we all kind of stood on the property and looked and we're shooting for to save. Again, as you look at the floor plan that's presented, that's the civil engineer's floor plan. So we still, before we got the architect too heavily engaged, want to get some buy-in and feedback on the plan. So that footprint and can be massaged somewhat to further reduce impacts within that 21-inch live oaks drip line. We've had some preliminary coordination with SCDOT. We're showing a new curb cut both to the south and then to the west on Walnut. We do not have any proposed access on 78. I think generally that's kind of where we stand. We have not proceeded with DRB yet. We want to get some tree board feedback. We've talked with the TRC, DOT, and utilities. So all those factored into this development is kind of what's resulted in the plan that's presented today. Happy to answer any questions. Anybody has any?
Yep. I remember the day we were there and was pleased about the 100-foot railroad right away. But now I see most of the trees, or at least half of the trees that are in that right of way are now to be gone, and that was not my understanding. Can you explain?
So part of it is the town requires a sidewalk to be installed in the right of way. There is none currently. So in order to facilitate that sidewalk, we did have to remove some trees. We're also doing a few things to improve drainage within that right of way because there's no slope or anything. So we are providing some swales to be cut in. And then on the south side, we did show, we got some trees that are in poor condition that we're removing to facilitate the driveway connection there. We tried to limit, the trees in the right of way that are being removed to poor conditions, the trees that are in poor condition. On the northwest corner, we did shows some tree removals there. Again, there's no ditch drainage, so that allowed us to kind of connect to the existing ditch that's on 78. We could look at a pipe conveyance, which may mitigate some of those tree removals, but again, I think it's still going to be required to take out. And additionally, that allows us to meet SCDOT site distance requirements. Again, it's not for a new driveway, but those trees, as you park and stop and try to look right to take a left out of there, that cluster of, I believe they're all pines on that corner, obstructs that DOT site distance requirement. So that corner,
Which corner are we talking about?
the corner of 78 Walnut. So on
Right, yeah.
on the existing roads. So we're not proposing new road or new driveway there, but as you stop and look right down 78, that cluster of trees really impedes your, ability to look right.
Is the line on the boundary along 78, I can't read this very well, is that the proposed new location once widened of 78?
That is, and we don't know exactly where that is, but we've seen some conceptual plans. So we've provided a 25-foot right-of-way taking off the existing setback line or off the
Okay.
existing right-of-way line. So
Right.
it's just our effort to.
Okay,
That pine tree that's shown kind of near within that 25-foot right away, the red, it's a fairly large pine there. We looked at that one specifically. At one
Yep.
time, we had a driveway there. DOT was not as amenable to that driveway location. I think we were allowed to do it with certain considerations, but I think at the end of the day, it made sense to remove the driveway access on 78 from the plan. So in essence, that tree could be maintained in that area.
well, you have to understand when we look at something like this, particularly on, as I'm looking at it, the right-hand side, because I can't visualize very strongly the buildings because they're not clear on this picture. They're more
You
so
can scroll
on-
to the
They
next
are,
page.
copy was no good. So I need to be,
Yeah, Peter?
Huh?
Talking about where I'm moving the
yeah, the lines of the building is,
If you scroll to the next page, they're a little darker. We screened them back on this page just to help. So this provides, we've removed the trees that we've shown to be taken off the property and maintained the ones that we've shown to be preserved.
well, just like the last discussion we had, is there not room for some flexibility? It's summarily discussed as just being pine trees, but surely you understand, this is more than just pine trees. This is a heck of a nice stand of longleaf pine, which is not a common thing. It's a tougher pine than the one we have mostly around here when it comes to hurricanes, et cetera. So it's hard to just not just to summarily dismiss the existence and just have a few trees around the edge. Two questions would come from that. What, are you in any kind of stages for a landscape plan? Is there any room for landscaping?
Sure. Yeah, and we've provided the same thing, the park space down in the south, page bottom right there. And then we'll have opportunities to plant some in the right of way acquisition areas and on the interior of the property. The challenge we have with anything from the building, kind of exterior building faces in, is that we do need to bring in certain quantities of dirt to get this thing to drain and manage that stormwater in accordance with the town's requirements. So
Which is what's right down smack in the middle, is that correct? Am I seeing these
Yeah.
big old culverts lying by side by side? Is that what that represents?
it's an underground detention system be under the
Right.
park. Yeah, they're the half kind of plastic structure. So the ADS system, the manufacturing device. But it allowed us to concentrate the parking and the access and the ADA requirements on the interior, which means on the backside of the buildings, we can really use some foundation walls to help make that grade without tapering out grade to further impact trees around the perimeter.
So I understand there's a railroad easement along, is it Walnut?
That's just no railroad easement, no, it's just a railroad designed where streets in town, put 100 foot right away.
So who has the conveyance? I mean, the town has the conveyance authority? Okay, that's my question.
No railroad track.
All right.
Yeah, actually, then all the right of ways
Well,
around this are SCDOT right of ways. They're state owned to maintain.
So the sidewalk you're talking about, you might be able to do something, save some trees. Does it have to be concrete? Can it be asphalt? It's something that's able to maybe manipulate a bit easier to protect some trees?
I think well, that'd be a conversation we'll have to have with DOT. I think the concrete is their standard and it's been tough to deviate from their standards and their own and maintain right of ways. We can certainly ask some questions. I think, the primary issue with some of the tree removals is kind of where we've got the cluster of trees. Along the large portion of the frontage on Walnut, we do have the opportunity to meander that path a little more, but that's really, if you kind of scroll to the previous page, that's really not where a lot of those trees in the right of way.
Going back to the trees.
If I may, since our site meeting was evolved, is the mandate for the sidewalks on both Walnut back street. When we met on site, the sidewalks weren't in the program, so there has been additional trees lost with the addition of sidewalks that are town required.
So
And we're forced to comply with.
I understand that part. So is that the up and down or is that, okay, I thought it was, I guess Fifth Street is the other one perpendicular.
So we're not putting one on the 78 side now because of the widening. So
Right.
they don't put that up and rip it back out. But the other two streets, since they're not supposed to be wide, have to go in with this development, part of this development.
Is there only a limited length along Walnut Street that the sidewalk exists?
Prefer not to install it all.
I understand that.
DOT's perspective, if we do need to install the sidewalk, they do need to terminate at an intersection.
Because there's no trees removed down on the bottom part. That's just what I'm thinking.
Could there not be some curving on some of those sidewalks to save the trees? There are a number of neighborhoods that do have curving sidewalks that is really kind of nice to break up the linear lines of everything else.
I think we do have that opportunity, but again, the curving of it, really the areas that we're showing removals of trees in the right of way to support the sidewalk, they're clusters of trees that we need to take out a few even to get the 5 foot and some additional areas for construction activity to get that sidewalk in. So there's one at the driveway connection on Walnut. You see there's 4 trees that we're proposing to be removed. That's both for drainage, sidewalk, and driveway. And then on the south side, we've got, some of those trees, there's a few there that we may be able to keep, not immediately adjacent to the driveway. However, they're just per arborist assessment and poor condition. So we've shown those to be removed.
Well, there's a power line along there.
There's a power line, yep. And it's kind of right along the right of way line there too. So there's a overhead power that they've pruned back a lot of that already.
So I'll ask the question, I think Bill asked the previous speaker, how many trees are out there and how many are you taking out of those trees? I know you already mentioned trying to protect the live oak.
So we've got a table there presented on this plan that shows for the grand trees that are in good and fair health, we're showing 27 to be taken out. And grand trees that are in poor health for the arborist assessment, we're taking 27 of those out. And then we've got off-site trees that's within the property limits. In the right-of-way areas, we've got grand trees of good and fair health. 6 are being removed.
Where is this right of way? Bill, you know where the right of way is and put your cursor on it?
Of course, there it is. Okay.
You're talking about this right of way on Walnut Street?
You can see it on that drawing below. Scroll down.
On this one?
Yeah.
sidewalk proposed or.
Right, but that's the only reason the trees are coming down in the right of way is because of the sidewalks and maybe a drainage corner issue or things
Yeah, I
like
think
utilities.
on the corner, it's the tree, it's the drainage and sight distance and around the driveways. I mean, I think a few will have to come out to facilitate driveway access. But I think, yes, some could be preserved should that sidewalk go away, but again, that's a town's requirement.
Could you scroll down again, Bill?
Want to go
The tree diagram. Well, it's just difficult to look at a diagram that has pretty much everything gone. You know, and I don't know, one of the things I brought up at another meeting, and I don't know whether it's relevant here, but, and it may not even matter in this case, but if we saw corners of the buildings when we went out there, you know, that'd make our job a whole lot easier, except when it's this uniformly removing of just about everything. Maybe it doesn't, but it sure would help to perhaps isolate just a few trees here and there if there was any possibility for, you know, accommodating them. I'm talking about the buildings. Everything's in a nice, neat line and all the rest of that. Nothing has to be, that's our point of view. You have to understand, I understand the mechanical approach to things as well. So don't know whether we can ask that this be discussed more with anybody or what, tell you the truth. My biggest concern was seeing, now you've explained why the right-of-way trees are gone. Which isn't exciting at all. What do you say, Kenny? Any thoughts? No?
Well, I mean, the town's required you to do certain things and you've placed your buildings in your parking lots and driveways in those positions. And again, the addition of a sidewalk by, you say DOT is
Town's required.
town,
requires a
okay.
sidewalk.
So it's another thing, the impact, which we don't have a lot of input on that at all. We just see the aftermath, which is unfortunate.
Just curving backwards.
And
So when you see those two big green, undoubtedly grand trees that are between the parking area and the water management system, two big green side to side that in rare right there are in an open area. Yeah, they're in the way. They're inconvenient. I bet you they're a great big old water. Pine tree. And is that simply just, I realize it's hard to save stuff. And is that simply because there'll be so much disruption to the root system that there's no sense saving it?
I think it's primarily the fact that we'll have fill, with that being an interior tree, we'll have fill on all, all sides of that tree, which then create that well, which
How much are you raising the site up?
not far. I mean, on average, maybe 12 inches. We need to create some slope to get
Right.
things, but across the site, that's,
The buildings will be 12 inches elevated too, I guess?
probably the finished pads on the buildings will probably be about 18 inches above, but the driveway areas will probably be, 6 to 12 inches above.
You also have an underground pond right there.
I see that. Well, once the,
So you'd be digging on both sides of those trees to your.
right, I know.
Even during construction, if it's preserved and protected, at the end of the day, there's going to be a well that's 12 inches in and around it that wouldn't be able to provide positive drainage for.
Oh, well, meaning,
Meaning the grade all around the tree would be 12 inches higher.
oh, yeah.
Because of the stormwater.
you gotta understand that, when we get to look at things like this, it's like the die is already cast. And that puts us in an uncomfortable position to be able to want to do something and not be able to, or make suggestions that, you know, for development that pretty much crowds the site. But, you know, and all it does is contribute to the degradation of the overall appearance in terms of our sense of a canopy laden landscape town. But it's zoned for that. And so it's just total utilization acquisition as much as possible. It just tends to work against what, at least I feel. There's a need for everything. I guess there's a need for the Volvo plant. Look and see what the destruction that thing created well and beyond what it needed. So it could be seen from the road. Anyhow, I'll not go on.
So the drawing we're seeing right now, I mean, is a correct depiction of the trees that are gonna be taken out and saved, ones with, obviously with no X's, even, I see even a poor tree in there, no X on it. So are all the poor trees being taken out?
Not all.
Okay, so just where the X's are is what we're looking at?
Correct. So,
Okay.
and part of the challenge, too, you know, our end, that we appreciate y'all's time to meet on site. And I think, you know, our main takeaway was that 21-inch live oak there on the perimeter is one that we really want to focus around. So we did. And so,
What have you done to beyond what anything beyond what we said? I think it's pretty much that building's gonna be right to the drip line. Is that
That's
right?
not the final floor plan. The architect has shifted and altered 2 of the units on that building to make them less steep, to give that tree as much room as we can. And then we'll of course provide the tree protection plan as we discussed on site for natural
Yeah.
record.
Least that deeper or less deep, what does that mean?
The building footprint will be pulled away from
Oh,
the tree
okay, okay.
in that location. So it won't be just a straight line down. It actually steps in to work around.
All right. I believe we have somebody that wants to speak to this project. Is that, okay.
You have the 2 letters to the
My name is Jimmy Myers, and this is my wife Karen. We live right on Palmetto Street, a block away from Mr. Willis's proposed project. And I am disheartened to see a lot of trees cut because of the canopy of the view. It's Flower Town to Pines. So I'm hoping that there can be some adjustment, but we have a water problem, as do our neighbors in this area. And the pictures that I submitted for y'all to pass around show the intersection of West 4th Street and Palmetto Street. There's a little church there and a daycare center. They have a lot of flooding issues in their yard when it rains. The second picture is one of the swales that exist to try to mitigate the water flow, but doesn't do it very well because their property, our property, and several blocks in all directions around it are flat as a pancake. There's no place for the water to go. The only ditch in the area is along 78, and it's about to be piped and covered up with the widening project. So I've learned something new today, and I appreciate the information that they need to raise the footprint of the buildings because of the flat property, which means that water is going to be pushed off in some direction. My question is, what direction? Because 78 is no longer an option. I don't believe. And we just have a few swales that push the water towards Hickory Street because there is a little bit of flow, but that's the direction it goes. So the neighbors and ourselves are concerned about not so much the project, but what will happen to the surrounding area. You have the advantage of being able to raise your project and stop a problem immediately. and as I would do. But we have a neighborhood, and it's a growing neighborhood. We're happy to see that more homes are popping up and people are renovating and such. So it's not sure I would call it vibrant, but it is coming back, and trees absorb an awful lot of water. This past year, we planted 27 trees on our property, all longleaf pines. I'm not sure I'll see the true benefits of them, but I grew up with those kind of trees in our yards and such, so I want to try to do something good that'll last. But and I know the water isn't an issue of this committee. Yours is simply about, can we save a tree or do we have to cut it? But there's a bigger picture. And what you decide about this, what they decide about laying the footprint out again, the water mitigation, underground retention pond, the permeability of the soil, the sidewalks. In fact, I just learned that we have the sidewalk now going to be on for the town's instruction along 4th Street. Well, it's a sidewalk to nowhere. There's no sidewalk to the north or to the south of that, but there's a sidewalk on the other side of the street that goes all the way to Cedar Street from Alston. So I don't really understand why we cut trees and put up a sidewalk, other than DOT says in their infinite wisdom that you have to do it. And it goes nowhere. So there's a chance to save a few trees, save some cost on the project, and just use some common sense there, but that's a different committee, I guess. I can ramble on, but I hope I hope the pictures and the other emails from a few of the neighbors, and as well as the letter that I submitted, can help in this tough decision. The Willises are, old Summerville folks. I trust him to do what's best for the community. They always have. But I don't think that they knew the kind of project problems that we have, because unless you're driving through there on a heavy rainy season, you'd have no idea of knowing that. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I appreciate your desire to save the trees and realize how much, very few people realize how much water the trees consume. And when we talk about how many trees are going to be cut down, that makes a difference. And I realize we're talking about elevating, but those trees will still be gone. And that much water will not be consumed by those trees. And like you say, where does that go? And we live in the low country.
Bill, do these other letters have to be read into record? What do we do with these?
It's supposed to be for y'all to vote.
Okay.
Let's address a couple of comments. First of all, it's not DOT that's requiring sidewalks. It's county law. And so we're, that's a restrictive ordinance in the town that when we develop a site, we provide sidewalks along all frontage, regardless if it goes anywhere. That's actually DOT's issue, is that they don't like sidewalks anywhere. The town would prefer that the developer spend the money to put the sidewalk in for the town for whatever future integration of sidewalks. Second of all, we have a very extensive on-site retention program going in here to deal with the difference between the pre-construction runoff and the post-construction runoff. That there is no impact of surrounding areas per the stormwater ordinances of Somerville. That's why this is going in. So the work that's being done on this lot will actually better the flooding on Stone Hickory and any water that's standing on Walnut. You can't move all of the water from the back of the site to the front of the site, but the majority of the water does move 278 away from the surrounding properties. So the development at this corner actually should have made some concerns rear of the property. As far as the trees go, per the UDO, we have to push these buildings all the way to the property lines. And we have a 5-foot maximum setback. So we don't have the luxury to just locate these wherever we want on the building, on the property. We have to put the commercial space as far close to the highway as we can. We have to push the residential units as far to the side. They would prefer them to be actually on the property line. Pull them off to the maximum that we can to try to save as much around the perimeter. Tree ordinance in the UDO, as y'all well know, prescribes to save as much of the trees around the perimeter and allows a taking in the middle. The reason why we're here in front of the board today is not for permission to remove trees for the ordinance, but actually for you to opine on the removal of grand trees, because that is not handled in the ordinance. So the cutting of some of these trees is prescriptive for the ordinance, but because there's so many grand trees, that's why we're here for the tree board today. So in short, we've done exactly what we've been told to do. We tried to meet with the tree board, and as many people as we could prior to completing the design. And we've moved with that input in mind and tried to preserve as much as we can on the site. So done everything that we told.
How many trees would be saved if the sidewalk wasn't there? Compared to most of them, it's not that many, I'm sure,
Yeah, not as many as
you would think.
I would hope. And again, part of the improvements we're making along Walnut in particular, we are installing, because there is no drainage swale to speak of, we are installing a swale and a pipe to help convey some of that water from Walnut up to 78. In doing so, some trees will need to be removed to allow for that drainage to.
Or curving the sidewalk around trees right here and around trees down there.
Yeah.
So that main stretch down the primary stretch, there aren't a whole lot of trees there to work around.
If you're gonna put swales in the two, pipes of the on the road.
They'll have to take it.
But it actually goes up.
Yes, sir. Engineering department is aware of what's going on. They're why their comments have been directed to help. But particularly, yes. Well, yes, right. So there's been a fair amount of input from stormwater, making sure that all of this water gets to 78. There's an outfall structure to the ditch.
Anything coming off the buildings and all the interior parking spaces, pretty much except the driveways connecting right away, all that's gonna be captured in the underground system, commonly infiltrated. And anything that does spill, it spills back to 78. Shouldn't have any of the sites discharges outside of the peripheral areas.
Bill, could you go back down to the color diagram? So again, my question previously is, I see all the things with X's, the things I see without X's, those trees at this point, you're planning on leaving.
Yes, sir. And if we have an opportunity to keep something that doesn't appear obvious on this plan, we will. If the intent's not to scrape the site, but given the grade, the retention, and the direction on the stormwater, we're pretty limited in what we can preserve.
Any more questions from the board? Does anybody want to make a motion?
That was good to put the fact that we were really here talking about grand trees that are affected and nothing else. And just like it as I do, you're doing what you're told you have to do, to the best of my understanding. So I see, I have no, I can see no objections that would motivate me to have a motion other than to, and the motion is to improve the plan as is and encourage the builders to do everything they can to save as many possible trees that are a surprise to them as being savable. That's
All
my
right.
motion.
Second?
I'll second it.
All right, any more discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments too.
I think that's it for us, I think.
821 Central Avenue, removal of one pine.
She did not pay her $25 because she did not want to, she thought y'all had already made y'all's decision.
Which we didn't, but obviously. Okay, well, I wish she'd come and spoken to us, but that's fine. That's her prerogative. All right, is there any miscellaneous discussion that we need to
Well,
take?
the one
place?
was that flagging corners, the only thing I had to feel about it. And just a feeling of helplessness with these things that are, you know, right hand, left hand. If CVRD could have helped out a little bit on that other development site, you know, and they just, you know, Jesse told me way back, even before I was on tree committee, when I was talking to him about that weather site. And she says, we don't let them do what they do anymore and just come in here and make all their plans. And of course, these haven't had the super air engineering drawings that for Willis's property. But if the ordinances set it up that way for these big projects, you know, I don't know. I feel sort of helpless. And they're not doing anything differently. It's like they want all the damn development they can get. And I don't know whether this is live streamed, and I guess I don't even care. Because, you know, that's what we're up against, I feel.
Bill, I don't know whether you can facilitate, Jesse can facilitate, but to Peter's comments, I mean, it seems like some things could be discussed, and maybe they are discussed before they ever come to us. And as simple as the sidewalk. Sidewalk wouldn't save that many trees, but they would have saved some trees. Does there have to be a sidewalk? Is there a variance process that can be gone through to not have a sidewalk there? And again, that would help us formulate some of our discussions here and how we would actually vote on some things. But when it comes to us, like Peter says, it's almost cut and dry. I mean, this is what the town has said they can do and have to do.
And there should be some flexibility to have and I agree, and that was Terry Jenkins' biggest objection that I remember when they had the kill the UDO meetings, that this is not Somerville, that everything is slammed up against us. You know, there's variation, you know, that I had no idea that it was as extreme as it is and not compromisable. Can't you back some things away from the street? Maybe this drainage system, which is quite a chore, would prevent that because of the volume of space it needed to take. But if you can save some things, as you pointed out, by moving the building back, where is this religion of?
We'd like to know the plan is what you're saying, is you'd like to know the goal of what we're all trying to get to towards. What our vision is of what we want things to look like. Y'all would like to know what that would be.
Well, it needs to be discussed in some of these other department meetings and when they grant permits. Has anyone looked at the site? Have they seen by putting a building 5 feet from the property line, it's going to just clear, you know, 15 live oaks that could be there for another 150 years. That might be an exaggeration because someone would probably have pointed that out because this is not a big town, but things like that, you know, I mean.
I think it'd be nice to know that again, discussions may have been taking place, that hard questions were asked of the developer and the town themselves, whether, you know, is there some options out there that would meet everybody's requirements. And I think sometimes what we look at, I think there is. But it's
Try to
good.
get out there and look at the trees early on in the project and try to get evaluation of them, or what they do look like and what they, what kind of condition they're in when they get first started on all these projects. Some of
Yeah, I know you spent a lot of time doing
them are
that.
too big to really,
I appreciate that part. They're just monstrous, right? It's
Yeah.
PUDs, you know.
miss stuff, because I mean, it's hard to see it when you get out there and it's all grown up and it's full of trees and little trees and brush, and it's just hard to envision what they're really putting in there until they start doing it.
And you should be permitted to be able to express that to other committees who are going to make the decisions that then end up dropping it on us.
I think that's our point right there. Yeah, that information is going back, then that's good. If it's not, it needs to be. And it may circumvent a lot of the problems that we have here, and we don't mind looking at anything, obviously.
Well, our chairman of the Commercial Architect Review Board is Chris Campo, and he does a wonderful job of going out and finding the grand trees and pretty trees on the work he does for Sigmund and White's on ahead of time.
Mhm.
He's all the time looking at that. So he's got that in his mind, but it's just so much he can do too.
Oh, absolutely. We just hope that there's folks in the town will say, we want to save these trees before it gets to a certain point. And if that means not having a sidewalk or something similar, then that's great. If it can't be changed, then fine. That's just what it is. And that's what we have to review.
Is it compulsory that sidewalks have to be straight? Why can't they be curved around a tree?
I think they did that on this one. They did it on this one already in 2 different places, I believe. So yeah, they did that. But again, you wouldn't save that many trees here, but there might be another project where a sidewalk could save a number of grand trees. So. Any other miscellaneous discussion? If not, do I have a motion?
We adjourn.
All right, I have a motion adjourn, a second. Second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Say,
You made the motion and.
I guess I did.
Who made the motion?
I did.
Who made the motion? And who seconded it?
Neither.
Thank you. We turned it over to code enforcement. I don't know. I didn't. Commercial architect.